Hello and welcome to the PopCult Podcast with your hosts Tommy and Tyler. Today we're going to talk about The Last of Us that just released its second episode of the second season. Very controversial one. So we're going to have a lot of interesting things to say about that. Stay tuned after the review of the episode for a little chat about some movies that we watched, some movies that we recommend, and some other stuff that we're sure will be interesting. All right. So, The Last of Us, Season 2, Episode 2.
Yes. Well, I watched the episode on Tuesday. It was funny actually because you had texted me the night before saying, "Oh, this chat's going to be hilarious," and so, but I didn't even clock in my head that they would do the golf club scene.
I mean, we said it in our previous review. We were talking about what we were expecting them to do, and this was the quickest I've ever been proven wrong. Like we watched the first episode, and based on that first episode, and based on the fact that they were showing us some of the stuff that the game shows you only at a later time through flashbacks, I really felt like they were gonna change. Well, I mean, the right word is I really hoped that they were gonna change some of the stuff that happens at the beginning of the game just to allow for the story to develop in a slightly different and more organic way. Because in the first episode, we are introduced to Abby and her group, and we're introduced to their mission, right? That they want to kill Joel. So I felt like they wanted to ride the tension a little bit more. But then, as soon as the second episode started, I realized that no, they were gonna do the thing because we end episode one. Actually, we forgot to talk about this scene in last week's episode because the first episode ends with Ellie coming back home and seeing Joel playing his guitar on the porch, right? And that is the prelude to a scene, a confrontation between Joel and Ellie that we then see. Spoilers, I guess, but we're talking about spoilers. That's fine. We're gonna see later in the game, in the show. And so when the episode starts and she's going on patrol with Jesse, and Jesse is like, "Oh, you and Joel," and she's like, "We're fine. We hash things out in a way, like you understand." Yeah,
I thought that was so lazy.
yeah.
That was and yeah, okay, cool. We might get that in a flashback later on in this season. But when I saw Ellie say that to Jesse, I was like, "Oh, great! Off screen, you're just going to tell us now everything's okay between Joel and Ellie. You're not actually going to show us. You're just going to have a line of dialogue where Ellie tells us, "Yeah, no, we're actually okay." To try and it feels like you're trying to soften our expectations before you do the big shocking moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but like
I hated that.
that happens in the game too.
Well, this and that's poor in the game also.
Yeah. Because as we said, the game has this narrative that keeps using flashbacks and flash forwards and just like changes in perspective to manipulate emotions that wouldn't normally be there, I guess. And this is a prime example. But I do get the idea of, okay, let's hold on to this moment. Let's just show that something happened and maybe things are good. And then we're going to go back to this moment and make it more, flesh it out and make it more important because this episode clearly wanted to establish, hey, maybe there is a way to mend this broken relationship. But actually, no, because spoiler alert again, Joel fucking dies in a very similar way to how he dies in the game, and we're gonna talk about the differences too when we get to that moment. But first,
Yeah, we can go through sort of beat by beat of
yeah.
the plot of the episode.
So I have a few notes here, and they are mostly based on what we said in the first episode. We gave the show a lot of grace, and I tried to defend a few of the choices. You said something that um, really resonated with me in this episode, particularly. You said that you can't stand when shows and TV set in the post-apocalypse have characters who just look pristine, straight out of
Yeah.
the Hollywood set. And I
Clothes.
was
The clothes are right off the railings of a shop store. Do you know what I mean? All the clothes are perfect.
exactly, and I kind of like defended this, being like, oh, like these are sheltered kids, kids of the Fireflies. Maybe we'll see a gruffer version of them in the next episode. Uh, we even joked about Abby packing underneath her coat, which is not true. She's so tiny, and her group. You're right; they are way too beautiful. It's just distracting at this point.
It's so silly. It's honestly, it's yeah. Anytime we cut to them, it's just like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, they are. I don't know. It's weird casting. Again, casting in this show is always been a mixed bag. Some of them look fine. I think Owen, like Jake Gyllenhaal light a little bit.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but I don't know. They felt they look like kids. Oh, there's a line of dialogue that when they said it in the show, I thought about you and I pictured you just laughing, because when at the end they are confronting Joel in that house, Abby's like, "What do we look like?" And
Yes, yes. I knew this.
Joel says, military. No, you look like fucking kids that are going to school with your little backpacks. You're not
Yeah,
military.
it would have been so much cooler if Joel had said something like that as well. He's like, I don't know, like you look way out of your depth or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like rather than Joel just be this submissive, just like, oh, you look like big scary military soldiers. It's like, no, they don't. We all can see that. This is dumb. Stop trying to tell us that these people are scary.
They robbed Joel of so many moments
Oh
in
my god.
this, and we'll get to that. But first, another thing that we kind of referenced in the first episode, and we were wrong about. They do go back to the homophobic guy.
I know. I was shocked when Tommy's wife came over and just like, pulled her aside. I was like, okay, what's this going to be about? And then when they show him, and I was like, oh my, this is so unnecessary. And also, like, what is the point of that scene?
Okay, so when this was happening, I remembered that this happens in the game too. You have the same
Oh
scene
god.
with the guy apologizing and Ellie
Is
not
it is
really
it like a is it like a quick time button event? Do you have to quickly press B to not apologize or something?
press X to accept apology from homophobic
Yeah,
man.
yeah, this is so stupid.
I mean, as I said the other time, it's okay that they want to address this stuff, and it's okay that an old man in a community like this would think certain things, and they want to, flesh it out and show it. It's realistic, but it's done in a very cartoonish, stupid way. So yeah, I agree with you. It's
Unless homophobic man is going to have the greatest arc across this season, and then we see him in the last episode. He saves Ellie and Dina, and then he makes out with Tommy or something like that. And
well,
he's
he
like,
is.
now I'm gay, and that's the
I
end of the Last of
understand
Us
now.
season 2.
I understand now how amazing it is. Yeah, no, but he is in the. We'll get to that, I guess. I keep saying that, but like he is in the crowd of people fighting the infected. So they're
I know.
humanizing him.
I thought when they
He was gonna
they
die.
sort of yeah, I thought when they tracked in on his face, I was like, oh my god, homophobe is about to get the most brutal death in the Last of Us history, and he's gonna fall over the side and be burned by the oil barrels or something.
Because he deserves it, because of his views,
Yeah.
his outdated
Yeah,
views. Oh yeah. So yeah, I was wrong. We were wrong about that too. They went back to it, and it meant nothing.
So in effect, we were right.
Yeah, yeah, we were right in criticizing the moment because this other scene kind of like proved the superficiality with which they are kind of like exploring this theme. Another thing that I was wrong about that I briefly mentioned before is Abby's muscle. And when she was out on the ice and she was really cold, I felt like, hey, she wouldn't be this cold if she had a little bit of muscle, but she doesn't. She's just so tiny.
I
She's
tell you what, though. I tell you what, her cold acting was
yeah,
very good.
she is.
And I imagine they were actually just out in the snow because, like, I really felt like she was like, yeah, I don't know. I just thought her performance was really good. I
She
got the
is
sense that they were in
actually,
this very
yeah,
cold, isolated environment.
yeah, I agree. She is good, and actually, Catherine Dever is her name. I figured out where I saw her before, and it's in this movie that I think is on Disney Plus called "No One Will Save You."
Okay.
Have you ever seen that? It's like a low.
No, I kind of recognize her face though.
Yeah, I mean, she's been in a few things, but I recognize her from this movie, which is a low budget sci-fi film. She is a mute living in this small community in a town, American town, and the town gets attacked by aliens. The town gets attacked by aliens, and she's alone, and the town around her doesn't really like her, and you don't know why at the beginning. Well, I mean, this is a tangent, but like just to say, she's really good. I saw her in this movie. I recommend that movie. It's a fun little sci-fi romp. It's well made, so no one will save you. Better than this, and she fights off aliens in that movie, so maybe it's what got her the role of Abby.
Yeah, yeah. And I know she originally went to audition for the role of Ellie in season 1 as well.
Yeah,
And
she
didn't
she
get it.
looks she I mean she looks the part for Ellie too. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, so I was liking her performance at the beginning. So how closely did the opening of this episode follow the games? Is she out on patrol on the snow and then the avalanche happens and releases the clickers?
Yeah, so I remember playing as her in the early game, as she is patrolling this snowy um, hill. They overlooking Jackson. You understand the geography of where you are. You still don't know what you're doing, which is something that the game hangs to for a very long time. You don't really learn what their deal is, and this is something that we'll discuss later when we discuss the Joel scene. But the big difference here is what we also discussed in our previous review, which is the horde of infected attacking Jackson, which is something that doesn't happen in the game. You only have, you know, a bunch of infected on the outskirts of the city. You have Joel on patrol, you have Ellie on patrol, on a different patrol, and they come across Abby's group, and that's where shit goes down. But there's no attack on the town from the infected. This idea of the horde kind of like using the corpses as insulation, which I thought was really clever and really cool, is not really in the
Yeah.
game.
Okay.
So the idea of her kind of like sliding down from this hill onto a pavement of infected and awakening them, and then them going into the town, like attacking the town. That's completely new. That's been introduced in the show.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was a cool scene. I liked the introduction of that. It was a good build up of tension as we see all the heads poking out the snow and we start to see them move. Yeah, it was a good scene, and that sort of really kicks off the episode, and then from there on out, it's kind of all action.
Yeah.
It almost felt like you watch Game of Thrones?
I've heard this comparison already. No, I
Oh,
haven't
have you?
seen the latest. I haven't seen the latest. Sorry, I haven't
It
seen the latest seasons of Game of Thrones, but I know about
okay.
the what's it called, the Night
There's a
Walkers.
big
Yeah.
there's a big battle at Winterfell in the last season, and it was very reminiscent of that to me. And I don't know why. Maybe because it's
In the
in one of
snow.
those situations. No, no. Well, that maybe too, but it's one of those situations where you're seeing this big zombie siege,
Yeah.
and in a way, I don't care about some of the characters, and it's like, oh, I hope the big bloater breaks through the wall and fucking kills some of these people. In a way, you're kind of rooting for the wrong side.
You wanted the bloater to kill Tommy because I take offense to that.
Not Tommy. When it had its sights set on his wife, though, I was like, oh, here we go.
But yeah,
um, but
so
yeah, it was a very good spectacle, and it kicked off a very good action sequence that went on for quite a long time in this episode. I thought it was all pretty well done.
it was well done. It was interesting the way it shows how the city functions and how they, prepared for such cases. Maybe not infected necessarily, but attacks from raiders. And so they have these, um, I don't know how to
Like
call
the
them.
oil barrels
Yeah,
that they were chucking off.
yeah.
Yeah, they should have built a trench
Yeah,
around
probably. But it's
a
really
little.
good the scene of all the infected just smashing their heads against the wall because they
Yeah, that
are
was cool.
yeah.
Oh, aren't the clickers like they're once you become like a full clicker,
Yeah.
don't they have superhuman strength?
Clickers are not necessarily super strong. Those are
Are
bloaters
they
and
not? Okay,
there's another class of zombie that we haven't really seen yet that also has kind of like superior strength. I mean, they have strength in terms of, they are just uh
like mindless drones and they don't
exactly.
feel pain, sort of thing. Yeah, but okay, I thought they had maybe established in the first season that they the clicker version of the infected were way stronger than normal humans, but maybe I'm misremembering.
It is the case in the game because clickers, they do not have eyes, but they have enhanced hearing, or in some sense they perceive the world around them better. So like you can move really slowly and stop them from the back, but like if you just make a noise, they will they will find you and they will eat you. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's mostly. And also the clicker that they show in the snow, he has like fresh blood on his mouth. So I think the implication there is that he was eating the corpses of the other infected underneath the snow or something like that to survive. I don't know if that's what they
Okay,
were.
I was getting the sense that they were all frozen, and that the avalanche had unlocked them from freezing. But
At the beginning of the episode, I think it's the conversation between Jesse and Ellie. They established that the clickers, well, the infected, are using the corpses of the other infected as insulation to
yeah,
survive the cold. So they were
okay,
just
cool.
probably kind of like hibernating underneath the ice, and then when Abby falls onto the field of corpses, I guess you could call it, they are awakened and they decide to go on a murdering spree, and unfortunately Jackson is on the way. So yeah, very good action sequence. The CGI on the bloater was a little bit obvious, but I really love I love the implementation of the flamethrower, which is another wink at the game audience.
Yeah, I feel like the bloater looked a bit better in the first season when it came out from the road.
Yeah, it was in the
I
dark, so it was a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe that was maybe why. But still, like I was happy to see it when from you saw it in that long shot in the distance. You're like, oh yeah, cool, here comes the bloater. Um,
They
yeah, and then seeing all the siege preparations of the town was good. Like you said, when they're getting out the flamethrowers, you're like, yeah, this is gonna be a good episode. So I really liked all that stuff too.
they definitely listened to the criticism of the first season not having enough infected action, and they wanted to start with a bang, and they did. And this was a very well produced action sequence. Credits where credit is due. They did a really good job, and they decided to put Tommy at the center of this action sequence, which brings me to one of the major changes from the game that I wanted to discuss with you, which is in the game, Joel is on patrol with Tommy, and Ellie is on patrol with Dina. And the patrol on Ellie's side goes similarly to how it goes in the show. They find, well, Dina takes her to this place, this abandoned gas station where Eugene, who by the way is the therapist husband from last
Yeah, I
episode,
remember.
was cultivating marijuana. Was and they have a little smoke, and they have a little smooch, and the relationship starts to flourish. Instead, this time they pair Joel up with Dina and Ellie with Jesse, and Tommy remains in the town because they wanted a main character to be there for the action
Yeah.
scene, which is a choice that I understand, but also kind of like robs the later moments of some of their weight and heft, because
Yeah.
the relationship between Dina and Joel has barely been established. And I guess what they wanted to do was for people, like kind of happens in the game too. They wanted for people to think that they were gonna kill Dina, and that was what's gonna send Ellie on her revenge quest.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you think so?
I think maybe
Because I
but
feel like I feel like Dina, as well, yeah, obviously I knew what was going to happen as well, but I don't feel like Dina was ever in danger from that group.
yeah,
I don't think that group, because they'd already established their somewhat where their morals were lying. They're like, hey, we don't want to kill anyone other than Joel here. So I never really felt that Dina was in trouble. I felt they did the pairing change more to establish, oh, Joel is also like a surrogate father to Dina as well, and it all inspired Dina to go on the revenge tour with Ellie. It will give her more of a reason to go.
yeah. I mean, they've strengthened the relationship between Joel and Dina for sure. I don't think they really have that many scenes together in the game. So the fact
No.
that you open up the show in the first episode, and the first scene we see Joel in is the scene where we are introduced to Dina too, that is significant. But I do believe that the choice was made mostly because they wanted a main character to be in the town during the siege from the
Yeah,
infected,
yeah.
and they couldn't have Ellie or Joel, and so the other main character that they could use was Tommy, even though he's a secondary character, but you know what I mean. A
Yeah, yeah.
more important character.
And
So
I mean, it just again it highlights they're really establishing Joel and Dina's relationship in this second season. And
yeah,
at the moment, just from the last two episodes, they have a way better established relationship than Joel and Ellie do, which I just think is not how this show should be going. You, especially in the moment where you're going to get rid of Joel as a character,
yeah.
and you're gonna establish that now he's more close to Dina than he is with Ellie. It's there's so many weird choices and like decisions they make with characters here. I just don't understand it.
I mean, again, the problem here is the source material. The source
Yeah,
material
yeah,
makes so many questionable decisions. Decisions that you can like or dislike. That's subjective. But when you're looking at the story that you're telling, so much stuff could have been done differently, arguably better, in my opinion. And seeing them sticking to the storyline in this way, even when they have the opportunity to change things up. I don't know. I feel like they're repeating some of the mistakes from the game, not really learning from the backlash. Some of the backlash was
yeah.
unjustified, but I think a lot of the backlash was just people saying, "Oh, we we don't mind that you're killing off Joel, but maybe it would have been better to do it in a different way." Like I understand Abby's motivation to kill him. It's just that and the fact that Joel is no saint, and he kind of deserves, in a way, what is coming for him.
Oh my
But
god, yeah, they're really pushing that angle. It's like, yeah, hey, Joel deserves this, and it's like, no, he actually doesn't. Do you
in
know
a
what I mean?
world
And
like
it's like,
this, in a world like this, I don't think the same standards of decency stand. Like it's not the same thing as valuing.
No, it honestly seems like the writer hates Joel now. Like they just don't like his character, and they want you to dislike him too. And it's such a weird angle to take.
Which is what people criticize the game too for.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
like you said, they had an opportunity to, and they have changed a little bits here and there, like establishing that Abby's crew are going after Joel. But they had an opportunity to change some other things. But if they had changed major things, it would be an admission that, hey, we did Last of Us Part 2 wrong, and we shouldn't have done these certain things. And like, ego comes into it where it's like, no, actually, I know I was right in Last of Us Part 2, and we're going to do that again in the series. And it's like, well, so be it then, and you'll see the same reaction
and
that
the
you
same
had from the
drop
games.
and the same drop off in
Exactly,
ratings and
exactly.
quality. Yeah. So going back to the episode itself, another thing that we were wrong about is that once Abby is running away from the infected and she runs into Joel, which is something that happens verbatim in the game too, she immediately learns who he is, which is something that we thought the show would hold on to a little bit longer. Literally, they they run into this. Uh, I don't know how to call it. This
It's like a big warehouse, like
big
abandoned
warehouse.
warehouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Dina calls out to Joel, which is fine. I think it's realistic. Dina doesn't know that someone else is there. Doesn't know that she
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
speak his name. So it's even better than how it happens in the game, because in the game, basically Tommy introduces himself to Abby and then later to the other characters, saying his name and Joel's name, so they all understand who they are and what's going to happen now.
And
So
that's definitely worse than what they do here.
yeah,
But I thought this was terrible because, especially, they've established in episode 1, it's like, hey, all we know is that Joel's a middle-aged male. He has a scar on his cheek, a scar on his
forehead
forehead,
is good
and
looking.
he's a good-looking guy. And so you're established. I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna be a bit of a like a detective element going on here, and they're gonna try and be sneaking into Jackson and finding little bits of information to find out who Joel is. But no, the next episode, the first scene, they go to the town. She literally falls into Joel, and it's like the writers are giving her exactly what she wants in that moment. It's complete plot contrivance. Why did you even establish that they had this potential difficulty to find Joel and then just serve him up on a plate like straight away?
That's the irony. I think they're playing with the idea that, she was looking for him and she found it. Like, it's divine providence. Joel fell into her lap so she could extract her vengeance.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that's what they were going for.
But
um
before this, I did quite like, and I remember this scene ripped straight from the games, where she is like up against the fence,
yeah, love
and all
that.
the clickers are falling on the gated fence, and like they're collapsing on her. Like, that was a really well constructed scene. I
And
like that.
that's a moment of gore there that I think you loved, where
Oh yes, that was
the
cool.
the hand, like the one of the infected is trying to reach out to Abby, and it's so he wants to get to her that it's like just trying to fit his hand through the fence, and you see like the fence splitting his hands in two and the
Yeah,
blood.
yeah,
It's
that was good.
that was really well done. Bits and pieces of good stuff in there too. So another thing that I wanted to mention, because now we are in the full infected attack, right? And so we were discussing the choice in the game of having Ellie killing a bunch of dogs, and how people didn't really like that. So we have a scene in this
Yeah.
episode where dogs are heroes. They're released and they go into the arena, and they start biting
I
infected.
assume these are superhuman dogs.
Yeah, they're
These
super dogs.
fucking
They're the same dogs that we're gonna see later this year in the Superman movie. It's a super dog who kills infected just by jumping on them. But they wanted to show that this show actually loves dogs instead of killing them. I don't know if we'll see any dogs being killed in the show itself.
Tommy's wife actually can be to blame. She sent those dogs to their death. She's an evil woman.
Oh my god, she's the worst.
Let's hope she gets her comeuppance.
Yeah. Or maybe she's gonna be saved by the homophobe, and it's gonna come
Now
full circle.
that would be an arc.
But
yeah, and that literally is the end of the clicker siege. She releases the dogs. We see Tommy's in the standoff with the bloater, and he's ripping it with the flamethrower.
Yeah.
And he uses the whole tank of gas on the bloater, and we think, oh no, he's gonna die. And then the bloater falls to its knees and has been killed just in the nick of time. And and then she releases the dogs, and that is the end of the siege on Jackson.
Yeah, very competent, very well made action sequence. With highs and lows, and the stakes are high. Generally really, really well done. And now we go to the controversial bit, because Joel has met with Abby, and they wanted to go back to Jackson to help out, but a storm is preventing them from proceeding any further. And Abby,
Well, no. Abby tells them to go
yeah,
to the lodge, whereas Joel wants to go back. And I thought this would be Joel would make the decision to go back. He sees the town of Jackson burning; they're in attack, but he decides to listen to this stranger he's just met to go into this isolated area and meet her croup, who she even told them, "Oh, don't worry, we are armed."
Another out of character decision for sure.
Yeah, and this is Joel, who's wary of all dangers, and he takes all the precautions he needs. It's completely out of character for him to go and do what he does.
It was out of character in the game. It is out of character now, and one could argue, well, we want to show that Joel has changed. He has softened up. He is trying to be a better man. He's trying to be more trusting. But I think that's bullshit.
Joel's an idiot. Joel's an idiot now. Isn't he great character?
Yeah. Especially because, again, as you said, as Abby said, oh, don't worry, we are armed. I was like, that should be a fucking red flag, alarm blasting off in your head. Okay, we're not going there. We do not know you. You might be raiders, even though maybe you don't know who I am and you don't have a personal grudge against me, which is a wild guess to make. You might be dangerous. We don't know you. Why are you in the mountains with weapons, overlooking our town? Like there must be a reason for your. But I mean, and again, the situation is dire. The storm is intensifying. We show later that Dina has some frostbite on her hands, so they had to find refuge really quickly for to save themselves. But this doesn't justify the decision 100%. And so we get to the moment that we were all been waiting for. Abby, Joel, and Dina get to the lodge. Abby informs her group of who Joel is, and everyone agrees it's time for a little game of golf.
So I was like, okay, maybe they're just gonna wound him in this moment, and they'll meet again, but they're not gonna do it right now. But then they do like the little pan over to the golf clubs in the background, and I was literally like, oh my fucking god,
that was a bit
right
much.
Now.
That was a bit much. The slow pan and reveal of the golf club with like the shallow focus. It was especially because how controversial and memed this moment is. Like, either change the weapon or don't bring that much attention to it. Like, it's so weird that like she just turns around and finally like the golf club is revealed, like it's a character appearing.
Yeah,
it's like, oh,
there is no significance of using the golf club, but they try and focus on it like this is a big metaphor, or this is like this is a real I just don't know. They're trying to focus on it like it had some significance, but it's literally just this is my random weapon of choice.
Yeah. So they use some kind of drug to put Dina to sleep so she doesn't have to watch what they're about to do to Joel. Joel understand what's going on, and before he can do anything, is shot in the leg, which is something that happens in the game almost verbatim. It's a little bit more brutal in the game. Of course, you can do more stuff than with live action. And then we have that scene that wasn't in the game and that people kind of complained wasn't in the game. But now that we've got it, I don't think it's better. So basically, we have Abby's monologue. Um, and this is where we rob Joel of another moment, one of his last moment, where in the game he says something along the lines of, well, why don't you do your little speech that you rehearsed and let's get on with it? Like he
Oh my
understands.
god, is that what he says in the game?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Well, I mean, it's a better line than what it gets in this. It's like, oh, get fucking, yeah, just do it already, or something like that. It's way
It's so
simpler.
pathetic.
It's so pathetic, and also I feel like, I mean, again, we were positively surprised by how quickly the show decides to reveal um, what all, what Abby and her group want. Uh, and but that was because we thought, at least I thought, that we were gonna get a slow burn of, as you said, kind of like investigation of who Joel might be, and then maybe they run into him but they don't know who he is, and then they find out, and that's a whole thing that you develop through a few episodes. But what we get instead is just verbatim what happens in the game, with the added context of knowing what they want to do. And now Abby gets to explain why she's doing what she's doing, which is something we didn't get in the game. And I don't know. I guess we can never be happy. People were complaining that she doesn't really explain why she's doing what she's doing, and that, we only learn this later when it's not relevant anymore. And now that we get that scene, I felt like it was the classic monologue of the evil guy explaining, "Oh, you don't know, like the doctor that you killed, he was my father." And I don't know. I don't know if that's the best way to reveal and convey that information, honestly, because at that point, Joel knows he's dead, and he doesn't really need that explanation. And Ellie is not there to get that explanation, so she still doesn't know why they did it, and she's gonna have to learn that again later. So I don't know. Again, we are speculating on what might happen, but I'm guessing they're gonna follow the story of the game fairly closely now, because the only difference in this sequence of events is who Joel is paired up with and where the clubbing happens. Because in the game it happens in a basement, and here it happens on the second floor of a lodge. So
In
there's
a
windows and there's a
beautiful
nice view.
beautiful lodge. Yeah.
So it's the same scene.
I didn't have as much of a problem with Abby's monologue at this point. It was, yeah, like you said, it did feel very like, oh, classic villain telling you why they're doing what they're doing in this moment. It's just how at
Joel
no
should have
point
said something there. I don't know. Like I feel like
it's so yeah, it's so bad because Abby is literally going on a spiel was like, you killed innocent civilians, and my father was an unarmed doctor, and he's a good man, he had nothing but good intentions. And at no point does Joel say, okay, well, is killing without consent an unarmed young girl and taking her brain out without telling her, that's also murder. So your dad was complicit in that. And are we not even going to address that that's a bad thing at all, or is Joel just the out and out, he's the bad guy in this?
yeah. And what is so frustrating about this is that one of the main themes of the game, and I'm guessing this adaptation of the game too, is perspective. Like it's about vengeance, it's about pain and grief, but it's also about perspective. You literally switch perspective to the murderer of Joel in the game, so that you can kind of like walk in her shoes and understand her reasoning and her motivation. And that's what the one trick that the game pulls to be more than what it actually is. So the fact that they refuse to see this incident from Joel's perspective, the protagonist, mind you, of the last season, like, we are not gonna get that. Like, he's gonna say, we're gonna have the flashback. Of course, we're gonna have plenty of Pedro Pascal throughout the whole show, and there's gonna be a bunch of scenes where he talks to Ellie, and he's gonna tell her that if she could do what if he could do what he did in Salt Lake City again, he would do it, because he would not sacrifice her for anything in the world. And that's his perspective. But why wouldn't he say that to Abby too?
I
Because
know he was just ready to die, and it's like, well, hold on, you are still the protector of Ellie, like, and if you die, then you are somewhat failing in your task here. But he was so in that moment, he was just like, yeah, I'm so depressed, I'm just ready to die because I feel guilty for all the bad things I've done.
yeah,
And it's like, no, like, in a ways, you obviously, it was very brutal, but what you did was heroic still, if from a certain perspective. um yeah, it's like you said, we never get that perspective because it feels like the writer in this moment thinks Joel is in the wrong and Abby is in the right.
unfortunately, that's what it feels like. And
And they don't, and from the games, because yeah, you might have a better recollection of this. There is one of the guys, the guy who's like a bit of aggressive in their group, who kind of looks like he's going to kill Dina. He puts the gun to Dina's head at one point.
yeah,
He's the guy in the game who goes up to Joel and goes, "Hey, pendejo," and spits on him, isn't he?
Manny, yeah, that's I think
Yeah.
that's I think they fused. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like they combined two characters. Like, there was one more character in Abby's group in the game, and I think the one that you're talking about, and yeah, is the
There's a
one.
character who looks like Neil Druckmann,
Oh, yeah.
and he's the one who spits on Joel and calls him a pendejo, and everybody was like, "Is this a Neil Druckmann self insert?" And
It's
he's just
just
shitting on Joel.
Jesus Christ. By the way, the actor,
What's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with Neil Druckmann? Why does he hate Joel so much? What the fuck is this?
I feel like he hates himself, and he hates the game that he made and how popular it was, and he thinks that he's, showing the fans off. He's showing the fans what they really should feel. It's kind of like what happened with Joker 2. Like,
Yes,
you
yeah,
know,
you're very right.
Todd
Yeah.
Phillips was like, "Oh, people are idolizing this character that I think is pathetic. So let's spend 2 hours making sure that everyone understands Arthur Fleck is a pathetic piece of shit that no one should ever aspire to even
And the
be
audience
like."
was wrong.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
I
that's a good
never
it's
I
a good
never
comparison.
idolized Arthur Fleck, and I never idolized Joel. It was an interesting three-dimensional character with flaws and virtues, and it was interesting to explore how, again, as we said in our previous review, his process, the way he opens up to Ellie, and that kind of sets him on a path where he is gonna, you know be willing to do anything to save and protect this person, because he, has interiorized his trauma of losing his daughter, and he doesn't want to experience that again. It's really engaging, thrilling stuff. That's what made the first game so unique, so interesting. The psychology of this character, and Ellie, to a lesser extent in the first game, but she becomes a very interesting protagonist too. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're failing to understand the appeal of the character again, and they're trying to fix him, while they just should roll with what Joel is. And what, I don't know. I guess we'll see how they work in the the
Yeah.
other scenes.
There was something that I read as well, and you might know whether this is true or not. But the first game was mainly written by somebody else, and there was a different lead
Amy
developer on
Henning,
it.
I think, is
Yes, and
Amy
then
Henning.
apparently, then when she when she heard the plans for the second game, she left, and then Neil Druckmann took over as the main writer for the second game. And it is like, yeah, and that's why it maybe feels like the two games are completely different in what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. And the second one is just purely aping off the success of the first.
The dynamic of what happened is never been clear to me, because I think they're still it's not like they're not talking to each other, or like she's been referenced, she's been there's homages to her in like Uncharted, like she was the game director for, I think, most of the Uncharted games. And Neil Druckmann at the time was kind of like coming up in the company. It wasn't really, it was one of the writers, but it wasn't, the head of Naughty Dog yet. And he took over the Uncharted 4. He took over Uncharted 4 halfway through production, I think. And that's where Amy Hennig left. But Amy Hennig was heavily involved in The Last of Us 1, while she wasn't in Last of Us 2, because during the production of Uncharted 4, she left due to creative differences with Druckmann. That's what I think happened, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, I mean, that was a creative voice that is not present in the second game, and it might be attributed to her, the differences that we find in theming and storytelling. And
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
even Uncharted 4 is very different from the previous three titles. I think it's the best one. I like the fourth one and the second one the most, but it's the best one because it's a little bit more mature as a story. But also in that case, they're trying to kind of like deconstruct Nathan Drake as a character. Oh, you're just a thief, like running after treasure because you can't
and this is
confront.
and this is Druckmann's sole version of the character.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
you are running, which is something that they explore in the previous games too, but he explores it in a way where, when you know that it's him and you kind of like compare the game to everything else that is done with The Last of Us, you can kind of tell that those are the things that resonate with him specifically. Like Nathan Drake is like this Han Solo asshole type, adventurer guy. He goes on many adventures. He finds treasure, but then he never gets the treasure at the end, so he has to start it over again in the next game. And in the fourth one, he kind of like wants to go after treasure because he doesn't want to confront his marriage, his relationship to his wife, and like he is trying to escape the responsibility of a relationship. And
yeah,
it's
that sounds like Druckmann.
yeah, exactly. They're trying to, well, it humanizes him, and I like that, but I feel like it does show that Druckmann's sensibility is solely on that kind of like, oh, men are evil and they're not, they're very mature and stupid, and women should come and save them from themselves. And
Yeah, and
I
it's
don't know.
very much like, oh, people aren't interested in the swashbuckling adventure of a treasure hunt. They're interested in a breakdown of a marriage in an action video game. It's like, no, you're missing the point of what the real hook of these things are.
Yeah, fortunately, there's other voices too. We're like, no, we're gonna put a fun action sequences here. You can't do nothing about it, and there's not gonna be a marriage counseling sequence in the Uncharted game. You're gonna do a big action sequence on a pirate ship, and that's fine.
That kind of brings me back to, obviously, when we're talking about marriage counseling, that brings me back to thoughts about Joel and what we, now that he is dead, and obviously we're going to get flashbacks throughout the season. What have we seen of him in these two episodes so far? And it's honestly, it's so bad when you think about it. He had one scene where he was getting scolded by Tommy's wife about not having enough room, and him not building enough, and he needs to work his fucking ass off to save these people, and he's an old man, but you best not stop building these fucking houses, you scumbag.
Yeah,
And then we get a scene of him being scolded by, we get actually a little nice scene with him with Dina, actually, when he's fixing the circuit breaker.
yeah,
And we get a scene of him being, we get a scene with him scolded by the therapist, and then we get a scene, the last scene, and this is the last scene we get with him and Ellie, and she scolds on him and shits on him for trying to back her up when the homophobe is horrible to her. And they're our last scenes that we get with Joel before he dies, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a lot of flashbacks, like we said, and it's the last scene that we see. It's not the last moment that Ellie and Joel spend together, and they're gonna hold on to that moment for later in the story. And I think that's fairly, like, it's good to, because it's gonna be the emotional core of the season. I believe so. But I am confused on how they plan to split this into two seasons, because I'm guessing that at this point this season is gonna be Ellie's quest for revenge, and then next season is just gonna be Abby's story, and I feel like that's gonna be a very tough sell for people who tuned in to see Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey kind of like journeying across the country, and at some point in the third season it's just gonna be the secondary character who killed Joel being the protagonist, which is something that people complained about the game too. I don't know how many people are gonna tune in for the third season. I mean, I am gonna, because I'm curious, but I don't know. It's a weird, it's a tough sell in my opinion.
I think for a lot of people, it will depend on how the rest of this season goes. If they're going to have, it depends how much Pedro Pascal's in there. Because I genuinely feel like for people who don't know the games and they're just watching this as a big HBO show that comes out weekly. I think Pedro Pascal was the main draw for everyone. For the casual watchers out there, and I feel like and the dynamic between Joel and Ellie, and I think we're going to see a massive drop off after this, just like people did with the games. People aren't going to like this decision. Like I said at the beginning, my sister even messaged saying how gutted she was. She knows nothing about the games. Yeah,
Well,
it's gonna.
it's a gut punch. It's an unexpected plot twist. The way Joel is killed off so
But
unceremoniously
you
and
can
so
have,
abruptly. And
again, referencing Game of Thrones, we had the Red Wedding in season 3 or whatever it was, and they killed so many significant characters, but you weren't gutted by it. It's like it's a different reaction. It's visceral and shocking, but it still is really good in the story, and you're still hopeful with where the story's going to go. Whereas this is like, why have you done this now so soon? And it's like, okay, well, where's the story going to go? Because we've just lost our sole protagonist pretty much. It's yeah.
yeah, and also this brings me to what we were talking about, which is Bella Ramsey kind of, now that the whole show rests on her shoulder, I am not sure how she's gonna manage to sell the character that she needs to become in the next few episodes, because she's still, I mean, as I said, we compliment, we were fair to the first season. We said that she was perfect for the first season, but I do feel like for the second season she's not the right fit anymore, because Ellie has grown up in the game, and she has a different look, while she just looks like, you know Bella Ramsey from the first season, slightly older. And I don't know if that's gonna be enough to sell us on her revenge quest and her being able to do all the things that she's gonna be able to do in the show if they follow the story from the game. So
Things are about to get ridiculous. I have a feeling.
yeah,
And another couple things I wanted to mention. That are kind of were changes from the game as well.
yeah,
So another one of Abby's crew, one of the females is supposed to be pregnant, right?
yeah. The doctor, basically, the one who injects Dina with the
Yeah.
sleeping thing.
So we
Um,
get she's heavily pregnant at that point in the game, and she goes on all these all these fucking quests and adventures while she's heavily pregnant. And
There
maybe
was
it
another
seems like
ridiculous thing in the games too. Yeah.
yeah, and it seems like maybe they've taken that out because they realize how silly that is.
I
But we'll
mean,
see. Maybe they reveal that she's early pregnancy. We'll see.
they make you kill a pregnant lady in a quick time event in the game, and
Who they
it's
make Ellie? Do they make Ellie do it?
yeah.
Of
Uh,
course they do. Of
and
course they do.
it's even worse than the dogs, man. I was gutted. I was like, what am I doing? I'm just gonna stop playing because I don't want to kill anyone anymore.
Oh my god! Is she attacking you, the pregnant woman?
Yeah, I mean, I again, I haven't played it in a while, and I will play it again because I love being miserable. But yeah, at some point you reach this place. I think it's an aquarium, and you're looking for Abby, and you have already killed a bunch of people from the group. And I think she and Owen are the last ones standing, and she is trying to stab you, and she's wearing a very bulky um, coat, so you don't see her
Oh my god!
pregnant
And they
belly.
reveal it. They
And
reveal it once you've killed her.
yeah, you killed her in a quick time event, and then she kind of like walks up to her and removes her coat and reveals the pregnant belly, and she's like horrified.
Oh
And
my god!
so yeah.
Like they just really want you to hate Ellie and Joel in this second part, and why the fuck? It's so weird. So it's yeah, maybe they've changed that, which again is a slight admission from Druckmann that that was stupid, and you're living in a fantasy world if you think that's something people can take seriously, and also the fact that we didn't get any. I think you get when you play with Abby in the game, you get this
Hmm.
sort of not a training montage, but we see that during this quest for revenge, she has built herself up and she's got really muscly now, and she's somehow broken into like a steroid factory and managed to eat all the steroids off screen. And that's how she got so big. And they decided obviously not to do that because again, they probably realized that is silly and it's not going to work.
Well, I feel like there was also a gameplay decision that they made. They wanted to have the more brutal gameplay that you can have with a character like Joel, and then you can't realistically have with Ellie, who was always more about sneaking around and killing people unseen, and using her bow. And so they wanted to introduce a second character like they had in the first
that
game with
could
Ellie and
that
Joel.
could punch that could punch clickers and knock them out with punches.
Yeah, and that the decision feeds into the gameplay, and once you don't have that need anymore of justifying this huge woman being able to just walk through a room and punching clickers in the face, um you know you lose the necessity of having her being so massively muscular. So yeah. um
It
I
was
mean,
silly. It's a shame. I really wish they did do it like to see like they did with Natalie Portman in fucking Thor: Love and Thunder. If they had CGI'd big like muscly arms on Abby, it would have been so funny.
there's still time, man. They can still do it. Maybe there's gonna
they
be a
could give
time
her
jump.
they could give her like the Drax arm that fucking that Daenerys
Emilia
gets
Clarke,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, I can wait for that. Maybe there's gonna be a time jump so they can have the pregnant lady be pregnant, and Abby is gonna be a huge woman all of a sudden. Also, they changed the way she gives Joel the um, final strike, let's say,
I thought that
because
was even badly done. I was
because
like, they should have smashed him with the club, not stabbed him with the club. It was
I
weird.
mean, obviously, it's less gruesome in the show than it is in the game. You can get away
Yeah.
with a lot more violence and gore in a game compared to a TV show. So Joel's face is not as beaten up as it is in the game. In the game, it was almost unrecognizable. And then instead of finishing the job with one last strike to the head, we show that the golf club has broken in between moments that we haven't seen. The golf club was broken, and so she grabs one of the two, like the tube, the hollowed tube of the, and kind of like stabs Joel in the neck, which I thought was very brutal, but also has less impact, if you know what I mean. It's not as, I don't know. It
It
felt
was very
weird.
it was very underwhelming.
Yeah,
Yeah, and as you know, as just a moment for, you know, like an action set piece or whatever, it was very underwhelming. And I kind of thought we were going to get again another Game of Thrones reference, but Pedro Pascal gets his head. Have you seen this scene where Pedro Pascal gets his head
oh
crushed by the
yeah, yeah.
mountain?
I know
Um,
what happens to him in Game of
and
Thrones.
it shows, you know, it shows you how good you could, you know, you could have made a practical effect of a mold of Pedro Pascal's head and just smashed it with the golf club, and it caves in, and it's this really brutal scene. You know, they decide, actually no, we're going to do this with a bit more like grace, and we're going to give Joel a little bit more of, you know, a nicer death than that, even though we're still treating his character like shit.
I think this decision was made because of another decision that they make, a difference with the game that I actually really liked, which is that when Ellie is, you know, on the floor, um, Abby's friends are, um, how do you say it? Um, Keeping her down. I don't know what's the word.
Yeah, yeah, they're just like restraining her.
Yeah, the Abby's friends are restraining her, and she's looking in horror as Abby kills her father figure, right? And in the game, she gets knocked down right after, and so next scene, it's her kind of like either waking up or actually just at Joel's grave. So everything has already happened, but here they just leave, and she gets this moment where she can crawl to Joel's side and have this kind of like Simba and Mufasa moment where she's like, "Come on, wake, like Joel, please!" And she's crying, and I thought that was really touching and really well done, and I think it's an improvement on how it happens in the game. Um, Stupid scene anyway, but that was an improvement.
It would have been better if she was like, Joel, wake up, and his face was just like pate. It was like just it was
And
just a
that's,
complete mess of brain matter, and she's shaking him. Joel, wake up, wake
yeah,
up.
that's exactly why they wanted the face to be preserved, so that she could look at him, into his eyes, and get a little bit of dead acting from Pedro Pascal, yeah, squeezing Pedro Pascal for all his worth. you know so yeah. But bringing this home, I wanted to mention two things. One is that the song that plays at the end, it's Through the Valley, which was also played in one of the reveal trailers for part two, like one of the Game Awards or something. And it's a cover of the song by Ashley Johnson, who is the voice actor for Ellie in the game. So that was a nice touch, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool.
And she also plays, I don't know if you know this, but she plays the mother in the finale of the
Yes,
first season.
yeah, I remember this. Yeah,
there
yeah.
th- there's a bunch of actors from the game playing minor roles in the show. The actor who plays Tommy is the the lady, the leader, the lady leader, is the right hand man who gets obliterated by the bloater.
Oh
Uh,
yes, yeah, yeah. The bearded
yeah.
special ops looking fella,
Then you have the voice actor for Joel, who's the second in command in the cannibal group. And then you
Troy
got Ashley
Baker.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Troy Baker. He's a great voice actor. Anyway, that's something that I thought was a nice little touch at the end.
Yeah. So overall, what would you give the episode? What did you think of it?
I mean, overall, if I really want to be fair, the action sequence in the town was really well made. I loved everything with the infected. The idea of them, hibernating underneath the snow was really clever. I like some of the changes. If you have to do the same story as the games, and you're not gonna change anything but a few minor elements. I think most of the elements that they decided to change slightly improved what was the story that they wanted to tell. The fact remains that the story that they want to tell doesn't really gel with me. I don't really love it. I don't think it's well done. And so I guess, 5.5 stars. No, 5.5 out of 10. Five out of 10.
That's actually a drop down in score from episode 1. So you thought this was worse than the first episode.
Yeah, because I was hopeful in the first episode, but now all my hope is gone, and I'm just gonna, I gave up, and I don't know. It's there's so many silly moments and decisions that they made that I just don't agree with. This is a 5 because of what they could have done, not necessarily what they did, because the episode is competently made, outside of a few moments that we mentioned, but I don't think the story is gonna hold from this moment on. uh,
Yeah, so you're
and
kind of scoring it with a bit of sort of context of how this will play out now for the rest of the season. Yeah, that's
yeah.
fair. That's fair. It's yeah, I suppose I think I gave the first episode, it was like maybe a 5.5 or a 6. I thought it was just above average. I didn't think it was a great, like, oh, our first premiere of the new season. It was very mid for me.
Mhm.
And this is a better episode in terms of entertainment value.
Yeah,
There's a lot
true.
more going on, and like I said, I enjoyed this episode a lot more. And it was only until we got to the cabin and we did the pan to the golf clubs, I was like, oh my god, we're doing it now. And it's still like, it was interesting because it's just watching that thing play out, this big moment. So I still enjoyed it. I'd say I enjoyed it a lot more than the last episode, but you're right, the implications of what's to come. I think now we're going to see a massive drop off in quality. So I'd give it a 6 out of 10 this episode,
Okay.
and I think this is going to be the peak of the show, and I think this will probably be the best episode of the show, which is crazy to think because it has one of the worst decisions made in it. But
I mean,
I'll be
once
surprised if it gets better than this later on.
once you detach yourself from the story that they're telling, and kind of just enjoy the post-apocalyptic world that they've created, there's a lot of fun to be had with some of the infected that they're going to introduce. We mentioned the Rat King in the previous episode. It's another big infected monster that they hopefully will run into in this season. I have one last prediction before we move on. I'm calling it now. Next episode, we're gonna have a new intro sequence. The title sequence at the beginning is gonna change because they use the same one as season one, and in the next episode we're gonna have a new one, and it's gonna be basically the same, but at the end, instead of having these two fungi, I guess you can call them, um, that kind of like symbolize Joel and Ellie. We're just gonna have one, and it's just gonna be Ellie, I
Oh,
think.
great.
So it's gonna
Great.
be even more depressing than we expect.
But overall, yeah, I think our general thoughts is can't believe they did it this soon. Yeah, like we said, they're probably going to keep Pedro Pascal around a lot for flashbacks in the show, but I am predicting a massive drop off in not just quality but in viewership as the show goes on. And actually, it had a really successful return. The first episode of season 2 had more viewers than the premiere of season 1, which is so rare for a show to do. Usually, it's a drop off from season 1 to 2, and this had actually an increase in viewership. So they had something there, and just like the first game, they stuck the landing and they got more people on and they got more eyes on it, and they might, just like the second game, they might fuck that again.
I mean, the first game story and the show story is really good. So word of mouth, probably, people were like, "Oh, you should check this out." I know people
Yeah.
in my life who haven't played the game and love, 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 love the show. So I'm really curious to hear their opinions on these later developments. I will let you know. I will let our viewers know what people are saying as well, because I think it's interesting to see the reaction, the gut reaction that people have to this development, because it speaks to how we see Joel, how we see his actions, and how the creator of the game see Joel and his actions. And yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll see. We're gonna move on to our little recommendation segment. There's a couple of movies that we want to talk about today. Tyler, why don't you start us off?
I went to the cinema last night, actually. I went to Picture House Central. Me and my friend went, and we went to go see Warfare. The new Alex Garland co-directed it with a guy called Ray Mendoza, who was a war veteran in Afghanistan and Iraq, and this film is based on his accounts and his platoon's accounts of what happened this one night where they were besieged by rebel insurgents. Yeah, really, really good film. I knew it was going to be good when I saw the trailer, and it is exactly what it says. It's this very, almost like a beautifully shot documentary, and we are just like over the shoulder of these a crew of soldiers, and
Uh-huh.
we see them go on this one mission. There is no story at all, and it's not a classic film. We don't get
It's not a
character
classic
arcs.
war movie. It's more of like
No,
a,
no,
a
we don't get any
moment in
character
time.
arcs. Exactly. And sometimes I think that potentially works to the film's detriment, but this film is more of an experience than a movie, if you get me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big cast. I see Will Poulter, Joseph
The
Quinn.
cast is fantastic. Yeah, Will
Yeah.
Poulter is sort of the leader of the group. And so yeah, just to give a sort of basic plot premise,
Yeah.
the opening of the film is amazing as well, and I knew I was going to love it from the first 5 minutes, because we have all the soldiers, all our main characters. They're back at their base, and it opens on, I don't know whether you remember this music video, but Eric Prydz, "Cool on Me."
It rings a bell. Describe it
It's
to me.
it's it's very like, how the substance is that like hot girls in the gym class like doing aerobics sort of thing.
I remember that. Yes.
It's that call on me, call on me, call on me, that tune.
Oh yeah, sure, sure.
And it was like very big in the early 2000s, so it like immediately puts you, oh yeah, we're back in 2002. "Call on Me" by Eric Prydz music video. Everyone was obsessed with it. Iraq War was going on. It really sets the tone of like authenticity, and that's probably the biggest thing about this film. It all feels so real, and like when sometimes you have a film being made by a filmmaker, and you can just tell they have no experience with the subject matter they're talking about, or this is something that's very alien to them, like when you get like an old man trying to write like Gen Z dialogue and it
Yeah.
feels so inauthentic. Like this is the complete opposite. Like this just feels super real. um and it's a nice bit of introductory to all the soldiers, and we get a good camaraderie between them in this beginning. They head into Iraq, I believe it is, and they take over this house because it's got a big second story, and they take it over as a purely surveillance base of operations. And unfortunately, there's a family that lives there who just has to kind of accept this situation. And the soldiers go in, knock the door down, and they set up base inside of this old house. And they're monitoring this building that has a lot of kind of military aged men coming in and out of it all day.
Okay.
It's so we get this build up of tension, and we're literally just with these soldiers, and they're reporting back everything they're seeing around them to their air support. And
Mm.
then it grows, the tension starts building as more of these men across the streets keep converging on their position, and then they lose air support, and we realize, oh, we have a few trucks of soldiers converging on your position, and starts ramping up, and then before you know it, a grenade is dropped through the window, the sound design in this film is insane. I don't know whether you watched. Did you watch Civil War?
Yes, I mean I love Alex Garland, so I'm definitely gonna check this out. But I don't
Yeah,
think it's available where I am right now. But yeah, I think the sound design. I was gonna say the sound design of Civil War was also amazing, and most of his movies I think have really good sound. So I'm imagining
yeah.
a very immersive experience of just
I
warfare.
should I should have looked it up, but I'm sure the same sound designer worked on Civil War and on this, because I have never heard more realistic gunfire in a film than in Civil War and this. Like the muzzle flashes, like the dropping of the shells on the ground. It's honestly, yeah, it's the most realistic like gunfire close quarters battles I've ever seen in a film.
Interesting.
And I found Civil War to be quite disappointing as a story, but
Hmm.
I thought all the spectacle moments, like the close quarters combat we see, was all really fantastically done. And so I knew this film was going to be, oh, this is going to be the best bits of Civil War and used appropriately in this story of warfare. And it really was, like, and I think I've seen some reviews, and a lot of like ex combat veterans, were commenting on these videos, basically being like, this literally gave me PTSD from how realistic like these gun battles are, and it literally took me back to being a serving military man.
Yeah.
um so yeah, just the experience of that was unbelievable. And it's one of those films where once one bad thing happens, it is literally full on from there till the end, and it is just constant
Non-stop.
things. Yeah, and things keep going wrong. One of our characters is slightly injured, and so they kind of have to get him out of this situation. And they do this thing which I've never heard of, and it's so cool. It's because they're in such close quarters combat, and
Yeah.
they're the jets they have as air support. They can't assist, they can't bomb anybody around them because there's too many civilians and they're too close to where the soldiers are.
Uh-huh.
So they do a thing called a show of force, which is and I assume this is a real thing that happened.
Probably.
And the jet flies so low over the street that it creates like a sonic boom and like almost concusses people. And they get this to happen like 2 or 3 times, and it's the sound of it is absolutely mental. And you see this jet bomb down this tiny street, and just dust flying everywhere, sends like a shockwave through all the buildings. Yeah, just like all these little details like that, which is just like, yeah, this is clearly somebody who knows what they're talking about, and is telling a story of what happened. Yeah, and there is a sequence in it with an IED that, like, you have, and there's no score. It
Really?
is all, no, none at all. It is all just talking, the sound of radios and the sound of gunfire and etc. What's happening in the scene. And yeah, there's like a moment where it's just pure silence for so long, and then this fucking IED goes off, and there was only like 6 or 7 of us in the cinema, but all of us almost jumped out of our seats. We're like, ah! It
Amazing.
was, yeah, so good. And it ends very abruptly, as you'd probably expect, because it's, this isn't a formulaic story. We're not trying to get from A to B here. This is just something that happened. It ends really abruptly, and I was slightly like disappointed. And then it has this little extra ending, kind of a bit like a Band of Brothers type situation, where we get, oh, these are all the real guys from who are played by the
Classic.
characters. And it was really beautifully done. And it shows a little bit behind the scenes of how Ray Mendoza was directing it and stuff. And it just drove the point of the film home right at the end. And just like, yeah, I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Nice. So you said that from a narrative perspective, it's fairly bare bones, but it's like superbly filmed and produced.
From a from
So
a narrative perspective, there is no story at all.
So my question to you is, because I really love Alex Garland and I think his movies, even the not so great ones, always have something interesting to say. I am always wary of war movies, especially when they involve like veterans, because I don't know, like I think of something like American Sniper is a movie that everyone was really,
American Sniper is pure propaganda.
yeah, it's very propagandistic in its
Yeah.
and I feel like many war movies fall into this because, of course, that you're gonna have to use real uh, real army equipment. So I guess, like, even the Transformers movies have very propagandistic tone for the military. And the military was always shown to be cool and efficient and, amazing, because they want people to go and become, you know soldiers, I guess. So
Yeah.
I'm always curious to know, and I'm asking you this because I haven't seen the movie yet. Does the movie feel like it leans one way or another, or is just kind of like showing you a situation and the brutality of it, and kind of like putting you in their shoes, in the shoes of these soldiers?
It portrays the kind of message perfectly. I'd say it really rides that line, because I'm the same as you. Like, especially when I'm watching war movies, I'm very like attuned to like, oh, is this, are you trying to rewrite history in a way and make it seem like one side's good and one side's bad? And loads of war films do that. But this is not that at all. It has a general underlying tone of, war is futile and war is bad, but it doesn't shit on what these men did. It's not like, oh, the Americans were there and this is purely evil and they were bad. It gives a tribute to the soldiers whose specifically a job is to go in and help Navy SEALs when they're in times of need. And it gives a tribute to those men, which I think is fair, because, they're just out there doing a job to try and protect people. And so I thought the tribute was nice, and it didn't come across as, woo, go America, and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
we
yeah.
did over in the Middle East was right, because it certainly wasn't. So I
Nice.
think it rode that line perfectly in what it was trying to say.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, and a great performance, because obviously we've got Joe Quinn, who's coming up in Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
and he's in a lot of stuff at the moment, and he has quite a hard character to sort of play in this. He, and same with Will Poulter. It's like these guys, and it's kind of has a bit of a Jarhead feel to it, where
Oh, I
like
loved your head.
yeah, where
Yeah.
like modern warfare is not like how it used to be. Modern warfare is sitting around 80%, 90% of the time doing absolutely nothing until something really bad happens. And it gets that really well, because these guys are obviously really good at what they do, but they haven't ever encountered a situation like this, and we see them break. It breaks a lot of them. And it Will Poulter's performance is really good, and Joseph Quinn like gives a real great performance in this. And I'll tell you what, it is harrowing as well. It is very intense and it's harrowing, and it's one of those films you come out of it afterwards and you're like, oh god, like, did I enjoy that ride? I don't know, but it will sit with me for a while. Yeah, very intense. It didn't get a wide release over here either, to be honest, and it's a bit of a shame, because this is a film which definitely benefits from being seen at the cinema. Like the Dolby Atmos sound in my screening was I think is kind of essential with this film. It is part of the experience of having that, and I don't think it would have the same impact if you watched it at home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely a cinema experience for sure. So, watch it on the biggest screen possible with a nice surround system and just get lost in this. Uh,
Yeah, I highly recommend. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10.
wow, an 8 out of 10 from Tyler is very generous, guys. It's probably a 10 from me, like, based on our recent gradings.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
like I said, it was one of those kind of things that will probably sit with me for a while, and I would definitely like to rewatch it later down the line. Yeah, it's all the best traits of what Alex Garland can do as a director, and as you said, I really like his work too. Even the so-called bad ones have great sequences in it, and
Yeah.
yeah, he's a super talented director, and obviously, a lot of credit should go to Ray Mendoza, who's depicted as one of the main characters in the story and is the writer and director behind it, and
Yeah, he co-directs with Garland, right? He co-directs with Garland.
he co-directs it, and in the end of the film, you see him like blocking some of the shots out at this location, and it's really cool. And yeah, as a debut director, this guy an incredible job, and hopefully he gets more opportunities to do similar films like this because it was fantastic. It's probably one of the best modern war films I've seen. You know, it is that good.
Okay, interesting.
It's the kind of film that's going to be annoyingly. It's probably going to be out on Amazon Prime in 2 weeks' time, and everyone will just watch it on there. But
Yeah, it would be interesting to see, how different the reception to it is when it's not on the big screen, because I feel like some movies, I mean, right now we have an issue with companies just shitting their pants when their movies do not perform that well in the first weekend, so they just release it on streaming. But there are movies that just need that cinematic window to really really work, I guess. Like it's not um yeah
yeah,
um
and Warfare is a perfect example of that because it's getting great critical reception. It's getting great audience reception. I think if you're on Rotten Tomatoes, it's both scores are over 90% or whatever. Not that Rotten Tomatoes is a great gauge of anything, but yeah, like this is something that if it did have a bit of a wider cinema release, I think word of mouth would have pushed this into becoming successful in its cinema run. But
yeah,
yeah,
hopefully
I
it
think
remains in cinemas for a while. It has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes out of 184 reviews from critics, so it's really really being really well received. So
yeah, yeah,
it would
yeah.
be a shame to just drop it on Prime and people are just gonna be like, oh yeah, it's a war movie, it's fine. It
Yeah,
doesn't have the
yeah.
same impact when you watch it on your couch with a shitty TV and a shitty surround system. So yeah, definitely check it out at the cinema if you can.
What have you been watching recently, or what have you seen?
So unfortunately, I don't have a big gloating recommendation for you, but I watched a movie and I think it could be interesting to talk about it briefly. I went to see Eden, the new Ron Howard film.
This is Vajana.
What were you expecting?
Accomplished director, well-known director, and it stars Ana de Armas, Vanessa Kirby, Sydney Sweeney, Jude Law, and Daniel Bro. So like huge, big stars. Especially Ana de Armas and Sydney Sweeney right now are on top of the world. They are some of the hottest in many in many senses. But people don't seem to know about this movie. They don't seem to care about this movie, and I kind of understand why. But basically, it's based on a true story, and it's set in the 1930s. Uh, Jude Law plays this character, Frederick Ritter, who's a doctor that after the First World War decides to leave Germany and kind of like repudiates everything about the high society that he was part of. And he decides to move to this island in the Galapagos. Floreana is the name of the island, with his wife, Dora, who's played by Vanessa Kirby, and just stays there completely alone, fending from himself, and trying to write this book, this manifesto that hopefully will guide humanity into a new era of, I don't know, enlightenment and peace. I don't remember exactly what he wants to achieve with this book. He doesn't write the book in the movie. And then we follow mainly our main protagonist, I guess, is Sydney Sweeney and her husband, Daniel Bro. They arrive to this island with their son, and they decide to settle there too, following Ritter example, I guess. And then shortly after their arrival, another party gets to the island, which is Ana de Armas' party. Like she's a countess. She comes there with like her two lover boys and a few other slaves, basically, and she wants to be the first woman to build this hotel, this luxury hotel for billionaires, millionaires, I guess, at the time, on this island. And of course, these three families, these three factions, they come into contact and they clash. that there's sympathies and hate and like favors, and it's a bit of a thriller, survival story of this character, especially Sydney Sweeney and her husband. They're trying to survive. They're trying to understand how to get fresh water and crops and meat, and kind of like trying to make a life for themselves in this abandoned island. Is this completely devoid of any human touch or life? Like they're just alone on this island with iguanas and other animals. It's just a nightmare of a place, and it's not like it's not a bad movie by any means. But it's not even like one of those movies that I'm like you said, like just go sit in a cinema as quickly as possible. You can, if you're interested in this premise, you can catch it on streaming when it eventually comes to it, probably very soon, because we went to see it last week, and on a Friday evening, it was 10 of us in the theater. So not a very successful movie, even with a stellar cast like this. And this kind of like it's so weird because not even huge stars can sell a movie anymore. And if you look at the poster for the
it's
film,
because it didn't have it didn't have a chicken jockey scene in it.
exactly, people are not gonna lose their minds throwing popcorn at the screen.
It's a chicken jockey scene that'll get the people in.
And they tried so hard because the trailer kind of sells a different movie, I think. And the poster, I'm looking at the poster right now, and you have Jude Law in the middle with a gun, Daniel Bro to the side with a gun, and then Ana de Armas and Sydney Sweeney, and it looks like a completely different movie. It looks like it's an adventure film. Instead, it's like a very slow paced survival thriller, with like long conversations. This very cool sequence in the middle of the film where Sydney Sweeney has to give birth, and she's alone, and there's like rabid dogs on the island that I guess smell the blood, and they get there and they want to attack her, and she's basically literally giving birth to this child while these other people are trying to rob her. So like there is some good stuff, but at the end of the day, it's not a very memorable movie, and it doesn't really. And there's so many things that just make me roll my eyes. I was thinking about our conversation that we had earlier about people in the post-apocalypse looking too good for what their life should be.
Yeah.
And you have Jude Law and Vanessa Kirby, who are these people who have been living alone on this island for 4 years with barely enough drinkable water, barely enough food. And Vanessa Kirby is supposed to be this woman that is plagued by illness, like she has so many problems, and uh, she's supposed to be like, I don't know, she's playing this character like very frail. They give her a cane at one point, but it's Vanessa Kirby. She's a beautiful woman, and it's just it's not gonna it's not gonna work. You can't just put some dirt on Vanessa Kirby's face and convince me that she's dying of some
Yeah,
illness.
they don't actually do any sort of good makeup effects on her to sell it.
Yeah, at some point it looks like she's missing a couple of teeth, but like it's not convincing at all. I don't know, like it's so weird. And also Jude Law is supposed to be toothless, like he doesn't have any teeth. But it clearly has teeth throughout the film when he talks. So I don't know
God, this sounds like a bizarre movie. And it's
it's
weird
very
because like
strange.
that's not usually like Ron Howard's kind of repertoire. It's typically like real life characters or real life situation film, and usually I think he's a very good director.
It's very competently directed. There's very beautiful shots of this island, and I feel like the color grading is, as usual with modern movies, very very washed out for some reason. I mean, they could really make the colors pop, but I guess they want this to feel gritty and real. But I don't know, the color grading really bothered me in certain moments. But yeah, like, and there's some very good performances here. Ana de Armas, she plays this very hateable noble woman who kind of like manipulates everyone around her because she's so beautiful and everyone wants to appease her. And when she doesn't get what she wants, she throws a fit. This movie made me hate Ana de Armas, which I think I don't think was possible. I didn't think was possible, but it did happen. So she's good in it.
Yeah.
And Sydney Sweeney was also fairly good as this wide-eyed kind of like young woman who was kind of like brought into this situation by her husband against her will, and kind of has to adapt to this island and living there, and making it her own. So it has some good stuff, but again, not a very memorable film, not one that I will remember. And it's so interesting to me that a movie with such a cast and an accomplished director behind it and a true story. I think this is the kind of movie that 20 years ago would have been up for awards, would have been, talked about to death. Everyone would be like, oh, you need to watch this movie. But now it's just another thing. Some more content for the streaming factory. It felt more prestigious. Like a few years ago, it would have been more talked about, I feel. I don't know if it's.
So do you feel like it has the quality? It has all the qualities to be a good film, or because if anything, I would say like 20 years ago. I know what you mean. Maybe certain things don't do as well as other things, but like 20 years ago, films in general were probably like, especially mainstream cinema, was probably a bit better quality.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's not bad quality again. It's just not very memorable. It's not very original. It's kind of predictable where it goes. Even it's a true story. So usually true stories don't really follow a pattern. But like, I don't know. It's just on the basis of who is behind it, who's on screen, and the premise and everything. I feel like this would be a movie that people would flock to back in the days of, back in the early 2000s.
Back when you could
Because,
sell a movie more on the stars in it,
yeah,
rather than you can't really do that today. But still, I mean, like you said, Sydney Sweeney and Anna de Armas are definitely like very within the cultural zeitgeist at the moment. And if you can't, like I said, I haven't even seen a trailer for anything for this film. So if you can't market a film with them in it, then you've got a serious problem. I feel like.
yeah, agreed. Anyway, Eden, watch it if you want, maybe on streaming. If you don't want to go to the cinema and spend 50 euros for tickets and fucking popcorn, just wait and watch it on Prime, where it will be probably in 2 weeks.
What would you give it out of 10 then? So it's not a strong
It's
recommendation from
yeah,
yourself.
it's a 6. It's a decent movie. It's not, that has a few good scenes. It's a 6.
Yeah.
It's fine. So another thing that I wanted to talk about today is gaming. I have been playing a lot of Cyberpunk 2077.
Test of a person's true value. Death. Facing it. Staring it down.
Johnny!
I got you.
You're a bit late on that one there, Tommy.
Yeah, I like to wait when games are done. I don't really want to play unfinished games at launch.
Or you could do what I did, and so I got the game on launch, and
Yeah, I remember.
because of how disastrous it was, CD Projekt Red gave me my money back, and I got to keep the game,
For
and
free.
so for free. And so then I sold the game because it was unplayable on
Yeah.
PS4 what I had it on, and so I sold the game, and so I'd actually made profit off Cyberpunk.
I didn't want to get it at the time because I knew that the PS4 version was unplayable. I didn't really have like a gaming PC. But now I recently got a PS5, and I am slowly making my way through a backlog of games that I wanted to play for years. And one of these games was Cyberpunk. And I started it like last week, and I have been obsessed with it ever since. I am in awe at this game, and I am so glad that I experienced it for the first time now, because there's still a couple of bugs here and there, but nothing major, nothing game breaking, and it's just one of the most immersive and incredible experiences that I have ever had in a game. And I'm only, I hope, halfway through, because it's the complete edition with the
You've
DLC,
got
which I
the
think is
DLC,
really
yeah.
long. So I have a long way to go, but I cannot believe some of the stuff that this game does. And so yeah, just so you played it after it was fixed, I guess, and you finished it. You played the DLC. What are your thoughts?
So I completed. I like I said, I got it on release, and it was unplayable in the sense that it would have just I could be playing it for 45 minutes, and then just during a cutscene, the screen went black and the PlayStation would shut down, and I'd have to reboot it, and you might have to go back to a bit of an older save. So it was really frustrating, and it was like it was ruining the game at points, but. Honestly, I was just in the same boat as you. I was playing along through the story, and I was like, even though there's so many bugs in this is one of the best, most immersive games I've ever played. So I kept playing, and I completed the campaign on my shitty PS4 version.
Yeah.
And I just didn't spend a lot of time doing all the extras because then, like I said, CD Projekt Red gave me a refund, and then I sold the game and I bought it again once the updates had come out, and I replayed through the whole thing, got the DLC, replayed through that not that long ago. Yeah, so I've completed both the DLC and the game, and absolutely loved it. Yeah, like you said, it is one of the coolest worlds I've ever seen created in a game. I love
Yeah.
all the world building is amazing. I became quite obsessed when I first watched it, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna look up I almost bought the fucking tabletop because it's based off a tabletop game." And I was like, "I'm so invested in the world and the characters. I'm gonna buy because it's Mike Pondsmith who created it. He created the IP of Cyberpunk a very long time ago, actually." And I was like, I just want to get this tabletop, even though I never play tabletop games, because I want to find out more about this world. Like that's how invested it got me.
Yeah, it's just, and also what I wanted to say is I don't really like first person games, and even first person shooters are not really my cup of tea. But I was so um interested in the setting of the game that I kind of like decided to give it a go anyway, even though I'm more of a third person action adventure or RPG kind of guy. And I felt like at the beginning I was really kind of like trying to maneuver around, and I had some trouble with the camera in the first few hours. But once you get used to it, it's actually the best decision that they ever made to make it first person, because everything just feels like you are there.
Yeah, well, you
it's
are you are the main character. V is just a self insert for
it's
yourself, isn't he?
it's incredible the way, just like when Keanu Reeves comes into the picture and he's just looking at you and speaking to you, it's so cool, man. And the attention to detail, like, okay, so without going into too many spoilers, even though I'm probably the last person on earth to play this game, um
do you
like the
not know what happens then? Still,
uh towards the end,
yeah.
no, because I purposefully didn't pay attention to any of the. Well, I pay attention to the marketing material, but I never saw any playthrough of the games. I don't really want to do that
Okay.
when I'm planning on playing a
Yeah,
game. I
yeah,
just want to
yeah.
experience it fresh.
And I
Um,
mean, to be honest, there's not really much spoilers you can do because we have there's like 5 or 6 different endings. So my experience will be different to your experience. I feel like that kind of final act of the story is probably where the game's in terms of its story is at its weakest.
oh, okay, yeah, I've
But I'm
heard
not
that.
not saying it's bad, but it's nowhere near as good as the setup and the build up of all the characters for sure.
But I
Like
think
that first act.
I was in a conversation with Panam yesterday, and
Oh my god, I love Pan Am.
and she asked me something about like journey and like what's your goal, and I chose the dialogue option that was saying something along the lines of, it's not the destination, it's the journey. So like, I don't care if the ending is mid, if everything in the middle is just so breathtakingly amazing.
And to be honest,
um
the first time I played it through, I got probably what is the worst ending, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until it happened. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, what the fuck? And I just had to reload my save and go back to that point and be like, I don't want this to end like this way. And then I got my second ending was what is considered the best happy ending. And I got that, and it was satisfying.
Nice. Would you recommend playing through Phantom Liberty before doing like the ending, or do you think I should just do the ending, then do Phantom Liberty, and then doing the ending again?
Honestly, I think the way they have written Phantom Liberty into the game, it makes more sense to play it afterwards narratively.
Okay.
Because obviously, you'll know this already. We're dealing with a ticking time clock, and Via's about to die. He's being
Yeah.
overtaken by this engram of Johnny Silverhand's consciousness, who's Keanu Reeves' character. And the ticking clock is somewhat addressed in Phantom Liberty, and it's partly to do with that. So I think you can play it afterwards, you can play it somewhat during, and it still fits. I will say the DLC, the best thing about the DLC is it adds a new location to the
Yeah.
world,
Dogtown.
but the story is it's nowhere near as good as the original story.
I mean, the
It's
story, some of the missions are definitely better than others. Like, I loved the subplot with Judy and the cyber psychos and the how do you call it? The brain dance, all that concept of just like the dolls,
yeah,
everything with the underbelly of Night City, and everything with Panam and the outskirts of the town. uh, every mission, every storyline has a different vibe. You have like
yeah.
kind of like a noir-ish storyline with like Takemura and like what's going on there with the
All
Arasaka
you
Corporation.
kind of have the Tarantino heist vibes with Jackie at the beginning.
Okay, so let me start with Jackie because well, let's start. We've been talking for like 10 minutes, but let me go back to Jackie because that's another thing. Spoilers for people who haven't played the game, but uh Jackie was so heavily featured in the marketing material that I never for a second, when I was playing, thought that he was, not gonna be in the picture for that long. Like, I
Yeah.
felt like he was gonna be, oh, he's my chums, he's my buddy, he's gonna be in a couple missions, I'm gonna go to the bar with him. And but then slowly, there's conversations about legends and how they become legends after they die. And slowly you
Oh
prepare for
yeah,
this,
yeah,
heist, and he wants it so much. And I was like, oh, the game is so cheap for doing this. They want me to think that Jackie is going to die because he wants this heist to go so well, and something is going to go wrong, and I'm going to fear for his life. And it's so like, oh, it's so played out and cliche. And just the level of fucking detail that they put in this character is just insane. There's this sequence where I remember, like, that's when I fell in love. And it's such a small thing, but I was like, every time they do stuff like this. So when you go, like, you are planning the heist, right? And you go to meet with Deshaun and Evelyn Parker, right?
yeah.
Oh no, wait, sorry. It's Deshaun and the other the
Her name's
hacker
Bug. T-Bug.
hacker lady, yes. And you go meet with him to kind of like go over the plan. And and uh and Jackie is very excited, but is also very nervous, and he sits next to you while you're talking to Deshaun, and you can see his leg shaking, his twitch, like his leg is moving under the table. And he looks at you and he winks at you, and it's like, this is a cutscene. Like, I am living in a in
Yeah.
a in a real scene. Like, it felt so real, the way the characters move, the way they react to the conversation that you're having with them. Like, even minor characters, like I was having like I was doing a secondary mission with one of the, it's like this lady who wants to do car races across town. She's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
the yeah and the game crashed after the race, so I had to redo that section. which I didn't mind. But like when I got to I had to talk to her, and just for fun, I chose different dialogue options, and
Yeah.
literally her expression changes. Like she was annoyed at the thing that I said compared to the what I said in the previous conversation that we had. Like she literally had like this like rolling her eyes, and I'm like, you didn't have to do that, man. That's just overkill. I'm already so immersed in this game, and these people feel fucking real. So yeah, it's just a level of detail that I rarely see in games, and especially games like this, because like a more narrative driven game like a God of War, for example, you expect the presentation to be very pristine and very detail oriented because it's a smaller
Yeah.
world. But
But
like
you
with
expect to lose that in a big open world game. A lot of those details.
and you don't even minor, like you can feel like that there's less polygon on like a secondary character compared to Judy or Panam or Jackie, but they all feel real, they all feel authentic, they all have great voice acting. It's just so, I don't know, man, it's incredible. And the things that you can do with your character, I'm just kind of like scratching the surface, I think. I think like the game is a little bit too easy, and the few boss encounters that I found so far are not that great, honestly. But I mean, I don't mind, because I think the best parts are always when you're having a conversation and you feel like the things that you're saying have an impact on the story.
And I think that's you're touching on where the game lacks. Like we said, with world building, graphics, details, storytelling, voice acting. It's absolutely 10 out of 10. One of as good as games can be. The
Yeah,
gameplay is very basic, and I found the same thing. It's so easy. Like I even played it on one of the hardest difficulties at one point because I had to
yeah,
raise it. And there's too many. You're never out of health. Stim packs or whatever, so you can always hide behind cover and heal yourself back
yeah,
up to full abilities again. But you're right. I think in terms of what your character can do, when you reach the last sort of act of the game, you're sort of full powered and you can do crazy things with the character. And some of the gameplay stuff is so cool, depending on how you sort of whether you make your character a bruiser or you make him a hacker or something like that. Yeah, it's so good. And it wasn't until I actually went back and played it again, I didn't realize that when you're getting your cyber modifications done to your body,
yeah,
if you have a certain like hardware in your brain, it gives you special abilities, and one of them is like slows down time for 15
yeah.
seconds.
I, I
um
I think I unlocked something like that yesterday when I was
and
playing.
and they
Um,
those are so good. Or you can get one which makes you like a supreme hacker, and you can literally just hide in the corner of a room and kill like 20 dudes instantly, and it's so, yeah, it's so much fun.
yeah, I'm trying to become kind of like that, and I always like to play stealthily because I feel like it's more appropriate in most like
Yeah.
missions, to try to be quiet and only kill people when it's necessary. But then the game is so easy that when they discover you, there's no point in me kind of like reloading the save and redoing the mission again, because
No.
I'm just gonna kill you and move on, because
My first sort of build, I was just running around with a fucking katana and just murdering everybody, just
yeah.
sliding up to people and chopping them in pieces.
When I found the katana, I was like, this is gonna be my weapon for the rest of the game. Even though I was building a completely different character that doesn't really do
Yeah.
melee, and I had so much fun. I kept dying because I kept running into enemies just to slash them. And then I found this sniper rifle that kind of like auto aims, and now the
Yeah.
game is just plays itself. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stay here and slowly, oh, dead.
And you can get
So yeah,
the cool tech pistols which can lock on and shoot round corners
yeah,
and like bounce off surfaces and stuff. Like they were really cool. There's a lot of cool weapons and cool mechanics within the game. Let's not get it wrong. We're talking very glowingly of this, but a lot of what CD Projekt were selling is not in this game. I remember, a lot of the early trailers and gameplay stuff, and they were like, this is going to be the most sophisticated police AI system in any game, and the police are
That's
going to be
not.
so good. The police are
Not even
terrible in the
now.
game.
Not even now that they
No,
fixed most of the problems.
they
The
never
police is
fixed the
still
police.
they they want to kill you. Like you even just like look at them wrong and they pull a gun on you. But if you run away, five
Yeah,
seconds later, stars are gone and you are back to basics. Like you
yeah.
can do whatever you want.
And you
So,
can turn a corner in a road and say you've got like a 2-star wanted rating or whatever, and then you turn around even though there was nobody behind you a second ago, and you're down like a corded off alley. Now there's a police car there with a squad of police with policemen, and it's just like they've spawned into the area to come and get you. So
yeah.
that system's not done well, and like a lot of the world when you're just walking around feels quite empty of just general civilians.
Yeah, like cars. Like I guess they want the road to be free of cars so they can move more freely. But like it does feel a bit empty sometimes, and I feel like it
Yeah,
doesn't really sell that fantasy of like a bustling future city when there's like five cars around.
yeah,
So yeah, I agree with you. Some of the stuff is not. Is not great. I guess it's especially based on. It's such a shame that they had to rush the development and the release of the game and release it on older consoles when clearly this game was too big for a
yeah,
PS4 or old gen consoles. CD Projekt Red, they did The Witcher 3. Well, they did all the Witcher games, and The Witcher 3 was so rich in detail. It was so engaging, and the characters, the secondary missions, and you can feel that same care put into this, even more so in certain moments. And I'm actually super curious to play this game again with a different character and make different choices, because I feel so many of the missions and so many of the secondary missions too can change drastically based on your decision. I was just doing this random mission the other day, when this guy wants to do this brain dance of him being crucifixed, and it was such a weird experience, and I felt like at so many points throughout that I could make a decision that would change the outcome of
yeah,
that mission drastically, and I felt that's very very interesting. And also I spoiled myself. Like there's this sequence that the all the missions with Takemura, right, that you are trying to uncover this mystery of the Arasaka Corporation and the murder of the leader of this corporation, and you are with this guy Takemura, which is one of my favorite side characters.
yeah. He was good.
And there's this amazing sequence where you have to sneak around a parade on these rooftops of the city, basically. These how do you call them?
It's like scaffolding, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. You need to go through like kind of like a rare platforming level where you need to reach these snipers and kill them before Takemura can do his thing. And it ends with this explosive sequence of events, and then like he gets shot, and I was like, no, I love Takemura, why? I didn't want him to die. And I went online and I found out that you can do things differently so that he doesn't die. So I want to do that. Like I want to go back
Yeah,
when I finish the game.
I was literally just thinking. I was like, oh, that's weird. Takamura didn't die in my playthrough.
You found it right away. Like apparently there is when they attack the building where you are in with him and Hanako, I think is her name. You can either run away because Johnny tells you to run away immediately, or you can find your way back to the apartment where you were, and you can save him. And I didn't do that because I didn't know it was possible, and I feel so bad. But I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna save my guy Goro, because
And those are the moments that games like that are so good at, where you like you have to make a decision in a split second, and then you are literally playing for an hour, being like, I regret what I just did so much. Like,
I felt
and
so bad,
it plays
man.
on it for ages. Yeah, and that sequence, I'm not sure if maybe it ended differently for you, but we fight like one of Saburo Arasaka, his sons, who's now taken over the Arasaka Corporation. His
Yeah.
like his like head bodyguard. You have like a boss battle with him, like
It's
in
Oda or
yes, Oda. That's it.
oh yeah.
You fight Oda, and there's a really cool boss battle, and it has the backdrop of the parade, and like it's very like Skyfall. There's a sequence in Skyfall which is very
It's
similar
true.
to this,
With the
and I thought it was
jellyfish.
yes, with the
Here you
jellyfish
have
in
a
the
dragon,
background.
a blue hologram of a dragon. Yes, no, I love the setting of that because you get there and your goal is to unplug this hacker guy, and you think that's gonna be over, and then Oda attacks you, and you need to fight him. But again, going back to some of the issues that I'm finding with the game, the I found the boss fight underwhelming because it's just he keeps regenerating his health, and you need to find ways to kind of like overheat his suit with your hacking, and then shoot him, and then he becomes invisible, and you need to find him in this level using the cameras that you can hack as well. So like there's a bunch of things that you can do to make the fight more interesting, but at the end of the day, he keeps regenerating, I keep regenerating, and so it becomes this very tedious uh, fight where I'm looking for him and trying to get enough health to deal enough damage so that he fucking dies finally. But then he disappears for a couple of minutes and he goes back to full health. I felt like, again, like the mechanics of these boss fights are not the best because I was enjoying the fight, but then it became like I was stuck there, and I wasn't even dying. Like, oh, I need to retry. You know, I
Yeah,
kept I was alive, but I kept losing track of this guy. Maybe I was doing something wrong. I don't know.
I think I remember that I think he has that that implant where he can move super quick.
Yeah, and exactly. So I don't know, and now I'm saving up to install some fucking blades in my arms so that I can go around and slash people's faces.
Oh yeah, they're cool.
So
They're cool. Yeah, like I said, I think the game only falters with a lot of the combat mechanics, and it can ruin. You know, you're building up to this boss battle or this fight, and then I'm not gonna spoil it for you because I doubt you've got to this point in the main story. But there is a character who is within the lore is supposed to be the most badass cyberpunk character that's ever existed. Um,
okay.
we build them up, and you fight him towards the very end of the game. And I fucking killed this guy in like 2 seconds, and was like, "Oh, this was the big bad," and it was super disappointing. And I almost wanted to just go back and fight him again, just like give him a bit more time because I felt bad.
Is
Um,
it Adam Smasher? Is it the name?
it is Adam Smasher, yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
you
they
have
keep
a
teasing him, so I'm guessing if that's him. Like, oh, yeah, this
yeah,
guy is the one who killed Johnny as well. So like, it's the
yes.
main guy. Um,
And you obviously see him at the beginning. He has a cool introduction when you're hiding in that, which is a great sequence when you're hiding in that
oh
TV
my
screen
god,
and you get to see the death of Arasaka. It was amazing.
dude! Like the first 5 hours, I was just because I kept thinking, oh, this is the tutorial. You know, it's very polished, very cool.
I
When
mean,
are
it
you
kind of
gonna?
is up until Jackie's death. That is
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah,
the
because
tutorial of the game, which is crazy.
I felt like the tutorial was the first mission where you then meet Jackie, and then there's this kind of like flash forward or like this montage of moments where you kind of like establish that you've been working with Jackie for a few months. And then I felt like that was the beginning of the game proper. But then I realized, no, actually, the tutorial is still happening. I'm still being introduced to new systems, the brain dance, the detective work with like the recordings, and then the planning of the heist. And every time you are planning a heist is so hype. Like they do
Yeah,
this cinematic where they show you where you need to go, and maybe you have like drone footage that you can analyze and scan things. It's just so immersive, so cool. And when I was playing that heist in the Arasaka Tower, I felt like, oh, this is what the game is. and in a way it is, but like it's also introducing you to how the game is going to work after Jackie, after Johnny Silverhand, after all the things that need to happen for you to kind of like become the V that you like, this character who's gonna become a legend, I guess. I hope I will become a legend in Night City. So yeah, it's so well done. The beginning is just it's chef's kiss, man. I kept thinking, oh, this is where the game kind of like is gonna just let me do my thing, but no, it kept. And the way they introduce new missions and the people call you, and based on your reputation they address you in a certain way. It's just, I don't know, it's one of those things where minor gripes with the gameplay
Oh no,
can't
not at all.
bring down my enjoyment of this.
No,
It's just
no,
it's
no.
just incredible.
And you get it's a game like maybe Witcher does balances the gameplay and the story better, but for this one, like you said, the story is so damn good that I was not fussed about any little things like that. And let me tell you something. Maybe you haven't heard this, but I think this is fairly known, or it might still be an unconfirmed bit of a rumor about Cyberpunk. But Johnny Silverhand, the character, was brought on quite late in the development, and Keanu
Oh.
Reeves was brought on quite late in the development, and the story was going to be very different. And it wasn't until they realized sort of how good this dynamic with you and Johnny was going to be that they changed pretty much the whole game to be about you and Johnny. And actually Jackie, there's a bit when we do a flash forward of you and Jackie, all these different adventures you've gone on.
Yeah,
And it
that was
feels
supposed to be the game.
Yes, yeah. Apparently that was supposed to be a large portion of the game, and you're actually doing all these things with Jackie, and Jackie dies much later on. But once they realized sort of the value of having Keanu Reeves in it, or like how good they thought that would be, they changed it a lot. And hey, I think it was, it's not a bad choice. But I remember when I was first playing through that opening section and we skipped through all that stuff with Jackie, I was like, oh, I want to do
that
all
was
that.
Weird.
Like I want to go back and do all that stuff. So
that's why I thought that was the end of kind of like the tutorial, because it felt like you were transitioning into like an established dynamic of you and Jackie going on missions, and of course you're gonna do missions on your own, but he was gonna be your buddy for the whole game, and then shit hits the fan, and that's not true anymore.
So that kind of makes sense. Like I can see that and how that kind of situation would play out. But hey, it's not a detriment necessarily to the story, because Jackie's death is very heartfelt and it's shocking, and even though you haven't had loads of time with him, like you don't want him to go as a character, and then they start establishing your relationship with all these other characters, and you're not yearning to be like, oh no, it was so much better when I was with Jackie and stuff. Like it's still great.
I agree that there is one storyline that I'm kind of mixed on, and I guess I need to see how it resolves. But like, it's the whole thing with Johnny Silverhand and his ex, who is like this super hot blonde lady, who becomes this incredibly advanced artificial intelligence.
Alt Cunningham.
Exactly. Like you need to go find her in the cyberspace, and you see this silhouette, like she still has that silhouette of a woman in the cyberspace, but she has ascended to a higher level of consciousness. She's an AI now, and she needs to get through a black wall to kind of like hack into the systems of Arasaka, or I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But like that whole bit was a bit like, it was too much. I don't know. I feel like, human consciousness, I guess, the game plays a lot with this.
It's trying to deal with some big things in AI and consciousness and stuff. And well, yeah, I mean, if you are quite close to the end of the story then when they start introducing that stuff.
Okay, but I felt like
well, I'll tell you, Tommy, that becomes very prevalent. So you best start liking it.
Okay, because I don't know, I felt like I can buy the idea of a construct of like a digital construct of a personality, kind of like living inside someone's head, like
Totally.
Johnny. But
In
like
this world, it
when,
makes sense.
yeah, but when you're telling me, oh, this woman who died 50 years ago is actually living as an AI inside this cyberspace, and she's become so advanced and incredible, and people want to use her for different reasons, and I'm like, okay, you're kind of losing me here. It's a bit much, but
Yeah, fair.
I
I
don't know.
see. I didn't dislike any of that stuff. I thought it was still interesting. But I know what you mean. It was, and that's why I said the first couple acts are better because we're dealing with more street level stuff and
Yeah,
general like, oh, how do you get around living in a place like Night City? And also, there's this background of I'm losing my mind because these two personalities are melding together, and I thought that dynamic worked really well. But yeah, that is kind of like a big crux of the story, that Alt Cunningham storyline. So, but you'll see what they
okay.
do with it. It's not. I think it was still good. Um,
I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
Something that has to be said because I still listen to it to this day. But the soundtrack of the game is the best soundtrack to any game. I'll happily say this, that I've ever played.
Yeah, it's really good. I keep pulling out my phone while I'm playing, shazamming fucking songs and putting them
Ah,
in my
it's
playlist.
and
So
they're all originally made for the game. Like there's no songs that weren't made for Cyberpunk, other than maybe one. I think the rest of it, they brought in loads of different artists and they all made original music. Like when you're listening to the radio stations, they're all bands that have come in and made songs for Night City. And then the guy is the Polish guy who does the score, who does the actual score for all the scenes of the games, and
yeah,
his score is absolutely unreal. Like there are some moments in the game where like the intensity of the score is like, this is some of the best fucking scoring of anything I've ever seen.
dude, just like some conversations that you have and the score kind of building up. And again, like that sequence with the parade just comes to mind, that there's like this music that keeps going up in intensity as you progress through the level, and it then it explodes with the boss fight. And even as I said, I wasn't really enjoying the boss fight that much, but the music and the presentation and everything was just like, yes, please, more of this, inject this into my eyes right now.
Yeah, yeah.
um
It's funny. I think if you go on like, because like I said, especially when I'm like working and I want something to listen to in the background, I always chuck on the Cyberpunk score. And like I'm pretty sure like the top comment, if you listen to the whole album on YouTube, the top comment is like, "Oh, CD Projekt Red just dropped this game early because they knew they had like the best fucking album made ever. So they were like, oh, we don't care about the game. I just want to drop this sick album."
it's so nice for CD Projekt Red to attach a game to this album that I love.
Yeah, no, legit. Um, and
Yeah.
it kind of this kind of brings me, because there's one song I actually particularly love. I can't exactly remember what it's called now, but there's and you would have played this bit because it's quite early in the game. Like you and Jackie have to go pick up this little robot, this little kind of drone robot from the Maelstrom gang.
It's the mission before the big heist.
Yeah, it's a setup for the heist, and like the Maelstrom gang are really cool in the way they look. Like their heads are like caved in, and they're just like lights there. So look, like visually, they're amazing. And then we have this scene where we sit down, and this guy called Brick comes in, and he's like, sit down on the couch, and then you can, and this scene can actually play out in so many different ways. Like you can just get up and kill this guy, and you never get the follow up cutscene afterwards. But there's this piece of score kicks in as it's forcing you to, make your decision. Do you sit down and accept the deal because these guys are trying to screw you over? They want more payment for the thing you've already bought off them, or do you just get up and you and Jackie just blast these guys away? And
Yeah.
there is, like I
Yeah.
said, there's a piece of score in this scene which is unreal, and it's one of the best scenes I've ever played in a game like that. Just the way it played out, the visuals of it, and then you get to meet that Royce.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, so many memorable characters, and the designs of the characters, they're so distinct. Even just random people on the street. Yes, you're gonna run into the same models more than a few times, but they're just all of them, they're so well done, and like the way, like the city feels alive, like based on the district you're in, and you're walking around and characters are behaving in a certain way. If you are like in Jig Street, which is like this kind of like red light district
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna find a bunch of people kind of like loitering around and like clearly drunk and leaning against the wall or leaning on each other, or throwing up in an alley. It's just, I don't know, man. It really feels like a real place, even though,
yeah.
as we said, there are a few blemishes to this simulation. But I don't know. As you know, you said it best before. It's one of the most well realized video game spaces that I've ever experienced in my life. Yeah, it's and I'm so glad that it is this good, because I've been waiting to play this game for so long, and finally I'm playing it. And yeah, it's as good as I hoped it would be.
I tell you what,
So
even playing a very bad version of the game when it first came out, I was still holding it in as high regard. Honestly, I was still absolutely loving it, and that's just all testament to the people who built the world and designed everything in the world. Because even with like game breaking bugs, and at points like I had all my civilians, they were walking around with like out heads, or they're all like T posing around Night City. And it's like, this should ruin it for me, but I'm still so invested.
it's a simulation, man.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
trying to justify the brokenness of the game.
And I'm so glad it was a massive success, because I want more from this world. I think this is one of the best like depictions of, you know, like that cyberpunk has become a genre now, and I think it's the best depiction of that world there is. And it's so interesting, and there's so much little things, and I'm sure, you know, there's been some books written about cyberpunk and some extra lore stuff, but like, you know, you have
Yeah.
trauma team, you know, like you have this team of SWAT guys that come down, and if you're on like a particular health package, like they'll get to you, they'll
Yeah,
get to you
like when you
immediately.
have to
Like,
save the lady in the tub. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly. And like there, and like even just that, and you barely see them, you're like, that's so interesting. Like, I would like to know more about them. And that you said you get the brain dances, and I think maybe one thing the game also lacked, which they kind of advertised they would do, is when you're getting more body modifications, you should
yeah,
feel there should be a moral dilemma. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It should
you
be like,
become more
oh,
machine than man.
exactly, and you know, you're enhancing, and it's something they do really well. Have you seen Edge
The
Runners?
Blade Runner TV show, yes, I love
Yes,
that. So well done.
that's kind of the whole crux. It's like, you know, if you have too many body modifications, you're going to go cyber psycho, and so it's all about, should you stay more man or more machine? And the game didn't really do that well in the mechanics. Like, I just got all the modifications I possibly could and became an absolute beast, and that was it.
Yeah, I think they could do more with the moral implication of making these kind of decisions. I guess they didn't have time, and now that they fix the game, they want to keep these ideas for the next one. I don't know. Yes, I was kind of hoping, and now you're telling me that this doesn't happen. I was hoping for the game to address this in some, maybe some secondary mission, but I guess it doesn't really go into
No,
that.
I think because your character V is just dealing with the ticking time clock of, you know, you're getting sicker and sicker from Johnny Silverhand's brain
Yeah,
melding with yours or whatever. That is the dilemma you're dealing with, and it's never anything about, oh, how many cyber enhancements should I have?
yeah. I
Yeah,
need all of them.
yeah, yeah. Whereas
uh,
like we said, Edge Runners deals with that so well, and it's like really well done in Edge Runners. And yeah,
yeah,
and it comes to a head. It comes to a conclusion that it should do, because there's only, I think, certain characters in this world, like an Adam Smasher, who can just handle, for whatever reason, being almost all machine.
yeah.
But for most people, it just absolutely destroys their mind.
I want to rewatch the show with the added context of the game, because I watched it, and for the longest time that was my only knowledge of the cyberpunk universe.
Oh,
But now that
you watched the show before you played the game.
Yeah. I watched it
Okay.
like when it came out because everyone was saying it was good, and it was.
Yeah.
It was really good. But yeah, just a quick note on the game. Again, as I said, the side missions are all so very good, and I remember when remember Delamain, the automated taxi cabs.
Oh, again, so good.
It's
Like
so
that's
fun, like
great.
just a side character that like doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but it's such a great addition. It's so funny, and when I
It
got
was very
his,
reminiscent of have you seen Total Recall?
yes,
The
yeah,
Johnny the
sure,
Johnny cab in Total Recall, like it was very similar to that, and I like that.
that's true. But like again, the attention to detail, because you get this mission where you have to help Delamain retrieve these cars that have disconnected from his network, right?
Yes.
And you need to go around Night City and find these cabs. And I found my first one just like I was driving around, and I kind of like came across it, and it was a chase. It was like, oh, I need to chase this cab for a while until it stops, and then Delamain will be able to scan it and reinstate it in its network, right? And I was thinking, oh, okay, so this is gonna be a secondary mission where every time I see a cab, I need to run after it, and then at some point, Delamain will scan it and the mission will be over. But no, every single cab is different. You
Has a
have
different personality.
some of them you need to convince with a conversation. Some of them, they're afraid, they want to kind of like kill themselves because they have like this
Yes.
this
There's
dread.
there's one of
uh,
the cabs is having like an existential
yeah,
crisis, isn't it?
it
Yeah.
wants to throw itself off a bridge, and you have to
Yeah,
convince
yeah.
it not to do it. Another one calls goons to kill you, and you have to. There's a shootout. Like it's and this is just like one of many secondary missions that you could just ignore, and it's so fun. It's so well done, man. It's
Like
really.
you said, the attention to detail is crazy because in a shittier, lazier game, like you said, that's exactly what they'd do. This would
Yeah,
just
copy
be
pasted
a
mission.
chase,
Yeah.
a chase and retrieve mission just to fill up your time. But yeah, they don't do that in here. They take care and account with each of the stories. I don't know whether you played the another side subplot story that was really good. You go to this guy. I think he's running for mayor.
Oh yeah,
You go
you
to
need
their
to
house.
investigate.
Yeah, and they think somebody's spying on them, and you discover like in the house they've built, there's this secret room, and literally like people are watching every move they make.
I didn't get that. Thank you.
Have you not seen that yet?
No, I think he called me to go to his house because he needs my help. But the first part of the mission was investigating the death of the mayor. That
Yes.
kind of
Okay.
like
Well, I
leads,
mean,
but
that hasn't given you any spoilers anyway,
no, it's
really.
fine. It's fine.
But that again goes so deep, that side story, that it's like, oh my god, you could make a whole nother game just based on what this story is about. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely fascinating, man. It's so damn good. Yeah, obviously the game was a massive success. It did really well financially. You know, the Netflix spin-off did really well. Was quite revered. The DLCs also performed well. People really rated it. So hopefully, I think they've got something in the works called Orion, which is going to be a follow-up to
So
um,
okay, you mentioned
Cyberpunk.
this, and I want to ask you because I thought that Phantom Liberty was gonna be their one and only DLC for Cyberpunk. But apparently you told me that there's more to come, that like they're still working on additional material.
It's like a week or two ago. I saw a couple people had done some postings about there must have been some CD Projekt Red event, and a woman who works at CDPR basically said, "Oh, Cyberpunk's not done yet. We've got a few little more surprises to come for you." So, and then somebody did some data
Nice.
mining, and they found that there's 5 characters which are about to be added to Night City. So this could be another DLC which sets up the second game, which I think they're going to be working on soon. But yeah, and a lot of people are speculating it's going to be some of those characters we see from the Edge Runners animated series, and we'll get maybe a little DLC with them.
Nice.
but
I mean, that's pretty
which would be
popular,
awesome.
so it would be a good move because everyone loved that show and Lucy and all those characters. So
Yeah, and the world of Night City and Cyberpunk has like infinite potential. I feel like we could keep going back to this world and tell different stories and focus on different aspects of things that happen. And it'd be fascinating. And I would keep going back.
yeah, and I had a thought the other day while I was just riding around. It reminded me of the feeling that I had as a kid when I was playing Jack 2, because I know you played these games. You know, Jack and Dexter 2. You ever
Oh
played
right,
that?
okay, yeah.
It's a similar kind of like futuristic city with slums, and of course it's a PS2 game, so it's not the same. I was like, oh man, it would be so good if they did a Jack and Dexter remake with today's graphics, and we could have like a city like this. But yeah, I'm digressing. But yeah, it reminded me of a feeling that I rarely feel when I play games as an adult, which is a very good thing indeed.
Yeah,
Uh,
pure escapism. There were points I think when I first locked into the game, I probably was like sat down and just played it straight without turning away for like 3 or 4 hours, and it was just like I am so immersed in this world, like like you said, like I haven't been in a game for as long as maybe like a Red Dead Redemption 2 was the last thing that was that immersive.
the last game that I liked this much, I think, was Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another good one. Also very immersive.
yeah. So highly recommend if you haven't played this. But as I said, probably I'm the only one on planet Earth who wanted to play this game and didn't play it yet. So yeah, it's a recommendation that falls on deaf ears. It's a good game, and everyone knows that. Unfortunately, it released in a broken state, but they fixed most of the problems. I'm still encountering a few bugs here and there, but I mean, with a game this detailed, some bugs are just to be expected. So yeah,
Yeah. And great games allow for that. Like Skyrim was filled with bugs, for years after it came out, and people still absolutely revere it because it doesn't matter when the dialogue and the voice actors and the performances and the world building is so good. Those things don't hit you as hard. And yeah, like I said, hopefully there's loads more to come from this world. Like I would love a more animated series and maybe even some live action stuff. I think there's so much potential for Cyberpunk.
agreed. All right, that was our episode for today. We talked about The Last of Us, and we will keep talking about The Last of Us, unfortunately, I guess. And we'll keep recommending movies and games and much, much more.